Now, this is a headline, folks. 50% of Americans favor a preemptive strike on North Korea, even though many can't find it on a map. Boy, if that doesn't encapsulate the ignorance of the general population and the general public of America, I really don't know what does, other than the Kardashian TV show ratings. I'm now joined by Michael Snyder, who is the author of this article, 50% of Americans favor a preemptive strike on North Korea, even though they can't find it on a map of the world. Michael, it's funny, I remember a similar situation just a few years ago with Crimea, when you had all these fake news pundits telling you about Crimea, telling liberals about Crimea, and then the liberals wanted to do something about Crimea. You said, well, where is it on a map? And they had no idea. It's funny how that works, isn't it?
It really is. And so Jimmy Kimmel went out on Hollywood Boulevard and held up a map. First, he asked people, should we attack North Korea? And a lot of them said, oh, yeah, let's attack North Korea, even if they don't attack us first. Oh, yeah, let's attack North Korea. Let's bomb North Korea. Let's bomb them off the map. But then he held up a map of the world, a blank map of the world, and said, OK, can you point to North Korea for me? And some people were pointing to spots in the Middle East. Some pointed toward Australia. Some even pointed up at Canada. They said, is it up there? The ignorance of the American people sometimes is just staggering.
Well, it's funny. You can make these videos like this, the one where they can't find North Korea on a map, but they want to bomb it. Or you can do videos of people leaving the polls that voted for Obama, and you can read off the list of what McCain actually supports or what Romney actually supports. And they're like, yeah, I support that too. And they're like, oh, oops, sorry, I wrote the Republican guy. Sorry about that. How do we beat this? Because you have another story that says, if you stand with Trump, please support Team Trump candidates for Congress. I completely agree. I think the 2018 midterm elections are the biggest election since the 2016 presidential elections, and possibly even bigger. But with such an uninformed electorate and uninformed public, how do we get people to know who's behind Trump? How do we get people to know who the right person to elect is?
Well, we've got to educate people. And so that's why I love what you're doing, Owen, with Omar Navarro out in California. We're getting behind him, trying to unseat Maxine Waters with a pro-Trump candidate. Similar thing happening up in Wisconsin with Paul Nehlen, trying to unseat Paul Ryan with a pro-Trump candidate. So what I would love to see is all of us that are pro-Trump, because we can't just use the Republican label, because we got Republicans that are pro-Trump, but we got a lot of Republicans that want to stab Trump in the back. In fact, there's a big-time rhino about to jump in the race up here in Idaho's 1st congressional district where I'm running. And if he gets in, he'll stab Trump in the back at every opportunity. And he's probably going to be my primary opponent. And so that's why it's so imperative that, we let people know, hey, I'm pro-Trump. If I get in, if Omar Navarro gets in, if Paul Nehlen gets in, we're going to have Trump's back. We're going to try to shut these investigations down. We're going to try to protect Trump from impeachment, because you know what? I believe the 2018 midterm elections are going to be the most important midterm elections in modern American history. And if the Democrats get the House and the Senate, they're going to impeach Trump. They're already saying it. So it's going to be a done deal. So it's imperative that we keep Republicans in control. But even if we maintain the status quo and we still have a whole bunch of establishment Republicans in there, they might impeach Trump anyway. And because there's a lot of them that are like John McCain, that'll stab Trump in the back at every opportunity. So what we need to do, we need to educate the public somehow. We need to get all the pro-Trump candidates working together. I've been using hashtag Team Trump on Twitter to try to get the word out. But we need to get all of us under a single banner, working together, getting the word out across the nation, saying, hey, we're pro-Trump. We love liberty and freedom. We're running on a Ron Paul platform. We believe in the U.S. Constitution. We don't want to go to war. And all these things that set us apart from regular Republicans. We need to get this information out there.
Well, I got to be honest. If we have fair elections in 2018, I literally have zero worry that Democrats are going to gain the House or Senate. I mean, literally zero. I think the Democrats, if anything, might be a completely dead party after the 2020 presidential election. But we'll see what path they choose. What I'm concerned about, because I agree with you about uniting as Trump supporters and using that momentum to ensure that we have a good Congress for the next Congress. But what I see coming down the pike are people attacking you, saying you're alt-right. We're seeing how they're trying to demonize the alt-right, something they created to pose against their other created group, Antifa. and thus try to spark the civil war. That's how they're doing this. And also another thing I'm worried about is fake Trumpers. I can see them posing fake Trumpers that are really GOP establishment members trying to get in there and to try to sully Trump's regime from a Republican perspective. How do you avoid them trying to demonize you by labeling you alt-right? And how can we tell a fake Trumper from a real Trumper?
Well, the left has already been attacking me, my wife, even my 2-year-old daughter, and they've already been calling us all sorts of names.
Well, now hold on now, Michael. They're attacking your wife and daughter because they're tolerant and they want to treat everyone fairly. Okay, so come on.
Oh, it's true. And I just got an email this morning just saying I was a Nazi. I wasn't even fit to live in this country. And so that's what they're going to do. So we can't stop the attacks, but what we can do is we can scream bloody murder and educate people. So that's what you guys are doing every day with the show. And that's a big part of the reason I'm running, because we need people to run. And some will win, some will lose. We need people literally to run all over the country, or else we're going to get bad people into office. But a big part of running for office is educating people, because when you run for office, you get a platform. And whether you win or you lose, you're going to talk to thousands, if not ultimately millions of people for the bigger campaigns. And people are going to hear the message. They're going to get educated. So part of this is an education process of what we're trying to do, get the truth out. And now, as far as fake Trumpers, we're just going to have to try to weed them out the best we can. But we know who Omar Navarro is. We know who Paul Nehlen is. We know, you guys know me because my articles have been on Infowars.com for the last 7 years. I couldn't run away from what I believe if I tried.
Yeah, we know, and even whether you like him or not running, Ted Nugent, a Kid Rock. These are just people that I suppose. Now, what actions are you taking to try to unite people that are behind Trump running for Congress? What steps have you taken to try to help us to know who these people are, know who to vote for?
Yeah, well, if you go on Twitter and you go under Team Trump, but that's one of the hashtags that we're trying to use to get us all together, to unite us. And even before I started running back in May, if you go back and look on the economic collapse blog.com, I was urging pro-Trump candidates to run all over the country. And so I've been hearing some people from across the country that are even running on the local level under a pro-Trump banner. So I've been actively trying, not just with my websites, but on radio and television all across America, trying to recruit pro-Trump candidates to run. Because the big problem is we don't have enough of us yet. Yeah, we got a few. We got Omar Navarro, Paul Nehlen, but literally we want to challenge every House seat in the entire country.
You want a flood.
Yeah, we want blood, not just Democrats, but Republicans, because we've got these rhinos. They betrayed us over and over again. They betrayed Trump over and over again. But the only way we're going to get them out is if we get someone to run. So the key is the Republican primaries. A lot of people are talking about November 2018, but for example, my primary is in May 2018. And across the country, in many areas of the country, less than 10% of the population of a state will vote in a Republican primary. So if we get just the Infowars audience energized and fired up to vote and get 50, 60, 70% of us to go out and vote, we can literally take over these primaries, put in Infowars candidates, pro-Trump candidates, liberty and freedom candidates, Ron Paul candidates into these positions. People don't understand, because now the Infowars audience has gotten so large and so powerful and had a huge impact for Trump. But these primaries, a lot less people vote. So your vote could count 4 or 5 times as much just because most people aren't voting. So people get educated about when the primary is, who the pro-Trump candidate, and you go vote. We could literally start taking over the Republican Party if we just get energized and motivated and galvanized to go vote.
Yeah, what you just covered is actually a very key point, because a lot of these candidates that I'm talking to, like yourself, have said that our biggest concerns are not in the actual elections. Our biggest concerns is the Democrat tactics or my Republican tactics that they might use in the primaries to try to bring people in, to try to rig the delegates. This is something that we know they do. This is something they do in the congressional elections as well. I am hearing that that's a concern from other candidates that I've talked to as well. So I guess the answer is to, like you said, be informed, know the dates. You really need to know these dates. Know the dates of the primaries, show up and show up in force, and maybe even, I don't understand. Have you tried to debate the people that you're running against? Have you guys ever brought a debate to the front as a topic for discussion?
I'm going to be trying to debate my fellow candidates as much as possible. Now, the race is very young. I only announced July 4th. And so far, the race is just getting started. So whenever there's a forum, a debate, I'm going to be there to debate the other candidates because we have the strongest message and we're going to win. Because when you compare the message of the Republican establishment against us, I mean, we win hands down.
Yeah, and you don't want to hear from another establishment Republican telling you that they're going to repeal Obamacare and then not do it. I mean, you got to get something. Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan. I'm sorry, Michael. Go ahead.
Oh, you're right. You're right. We've seen him betray us over and over again with Obamacare. John McCain, he ran in 2010 on repealing Obamacare. Then in 2016, he said, "Oh, I'm leading the fight to repeal Obamacare," but then he betrayed us. And and then the Republican establishment, they're blocking the wall, they're blocking Trump's tax cuts, they're blocking Trump on immigration. If Trump is going to be a successful president, the number one determining factor is going to be the composition of Congress. And so it's absolutely imperative we get him some friends in 2018, because if we don't, what the elite want to do, they want to get Trump out of office. They want to remove him however they can. And then you know what they're going to do after they get Trump out of office? They're going to come after us. It's just not going to return to normal. They understand the power that we have, and they're going to come after InfoWars. They're going to come after me. So we've got to win this battle.
And we can't have these cuck-servatives in there that are going to tiptoe on eggshells because they don't want to offend people because of the PC culture that's been existent in D.C. for so long. No, we've smashed the PC culture. Now let's smash the establishment. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. Owen Schroyer filling in for Alex this segment. Joined by Michael Snyder. We discussed hashtag support Team Trump on Twitter to make sure that we get the right candidates in Congress in the midterm elections. I want to change paths here for a second, Michael, and let's talk about some economic news. You do run the website economiccollapseblog.com. A lot of the economic markets experts that I've been talking to have been saying not to get so excited over the stock market getting up, saying not to get so excited over all these booms, not to get so excited over all these graphs you see going up, that it's just a bubble, that it's not actually real, it's more based on hype. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the number one reason why the stock market has been going up is because of global central banks, which have been pumping trillions of dollars into the system, and not just the Federal Reserve, but for example, the Swiss National Bank during the months of January, February, March alone, they purchased more than 4 million shares of Apple stock. So if I buy a couple shares of Apple, you sell some shares of Apple, that doesn't matter when you got the Swiss National Bank, their central bank, buying 4 million shares. And also the Swiss National Bank owns more publicly traded shares of Facebook now than Mark Zuckerberg does. It's crazy. Or you got the Bank of Japan. They've been buying up so much shares shamelessly that now they're a top 5 owner in more than 80 large companies over in Japan. So it's these central banks that have been pumping it up, and they can deflate the bubble too. In fact, in September is the very first time the Federal Reserve is supposed to start rolling back their balance sheet. Now they say, okay, we've been buying all these stocks and bonds. Now we're going to start rolling it back. We're going to start unwinding our balance sheet, and that many believe that is going to have a huge impact on the financial markets, because the financial markets have become completely disconnected from economic reality. We're already seeing a recession in the restaurant industry. Auto sales are way down this year. There's all kinds of red flags going up in terms of the real economy, but the financial markets have been in this giant bubble primarily because of the central banks. Also, corporate buybacks for years. Corporations were buying back tremendous amounts of their stock, unprecedented in history. But now corporate buybacks are starting to fall, and that's a sign that the market may be starting to turn.
I'm actually seeing the service industry having a boom right now, and that seems to be having the biggest boom. You're saying you're not seeing that? You're disagreeing with that?
Well, it may be locally, but overall in the entire country, restaurant traffic has fallen over the last couple of years. In fact, restaurant same-store sales are down something like 17 months in a row. And so the restaurants nationally are actually having a tough time. Now, down there in Texas, because of the oil and everything, you guys may be seeing some good things. But as a whole, nationally, yeah, the restaurant industry is really, in a recession. Same thing with the retail industry. We're on pace for this year for more retail locations, more retail stores to shut down than any year. Well, that is more
attributed to Amazon, which in the last month, I think, took over like 30% of the market. something ridiculous. Amazon took over on the retail. And I don't know. You're the expert on this, economiccollapseblog.com, but I actually think that in the next 6 months, and I don't claim to be a market expert, but I actually think that the service industry is going to come back and that it's going to wait to see that uptick. I think that might be one of the only industries where we see a real uptick that isn't something like this. And I want to hear your thoughts on this headline. This broke on Zero Hedge today. Record number of fund managers say stocks are overvalued as they rush to buy NASDAQ. And I think that's more what I'm seeing the experts allude to, that they're being overvalued, overhyped.
Oh, you're right. Price earnings ratios, for example, the cyclically adjusted price to earnings ratio put out by Robert Shiller of Yale University. The only time it's been this high in our history were right before the 1929 crash, right before the dot-com bubble burst, or even higher than we were before the last financial crisis. Or you look at price to sales ratios, because earnings can be manipulated, but you can't manipulate sales, because if you manipulate sales numbers, you go to prison. So, but the price to sales ratios in terms of stocks are the highest they've ever been in U.S.
Now,
history.
do you think this could be a big issue for Trump in the future if we actually see these big hyped stock market records actually collapse and end up being a bad thing for the economy? How can Trump get ahead of this before they demonize him for that?
Yeah, well, Trump is, unfortunately, I believe, been taking credit for the stock market rise.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think he should have been more cautious there, because when it falls, well, then they're going to say, you took the credit, you get the blame, and they're going to point the fingers at him. But it's not going to have really anything to do with Trump, because so much of Trump's agenda, tax cuts and so forth, hasn't even been implemented. But really, this is all about the central banks. And that's why beforehand, I'm trying to get people to understand it's the Federal Reserve. It's the central banks that have caused it. So when it burst, finally we can get people to understand, let's get off this roller coaster ride. 18 different recessions and or depressions since the Fed was created in 1913. We've got to shut down the Federal Reserve, like Ron Paul, was saying, back when he was running for president. I'm running on a Ron Paul platform, and one of the main points on the platform I'm running on, we've got to shut down the Federal Reserve, because until we do, we're going to keep having these booms and busts. We're going to keep seeing the
Michael Snyder, economiccollapseblog.com. We'll be right back.